This video is sponsored by NordVPN. If you want the ultimate protection when you're browsing online, head over to nordvpn.com/Austin and use the promo code Austin to get yourself 77% off. Hey guys, this is Austin. Last year, I took a look at the most ridiculous over-the-top gaming laptop that I had ever seen. However, fast forward to 2018, and we have this, the new most ridiculous, powerful, over-the-top gaming laptop that I have ever seen. This is the ASUS ROG G703. And let's just get the elephant out of the room immediately. This laptop, as it's spec'd right now, costs $5,000. Now, if that doesn't immediately put you off from spending as much as some used cars, there's actually a ton to like with this laptop. Now, I'll freely admit, I spend a lot of time on the channel reviewing some very budget laptops. And while that's fun, this is so ridiculously overkill in every possible way that I kind of don't want to give it back. So when you're spending this kind of money, you should expect to get all the bells and whistles out there, and this pretty much does deliver. So to start out with, it has the awesome new Intel Core i9 processor. Now that on a laptop is going to get you 6 cores, and ASUS has actually overclocked it even farther. So this guy will run up to 4.8 gigahertz right out of the box. Now that's not some kind of baby overclock where it just kind of hits it every once in a while. It will hit 4.8 all the time. It's so ridiculous for a laptop. The crazy overkill doesn't stop there either. So inside, this guy is also rocking a full desktop class GTX 1080 graphics card with a full 8 gigabytes of GDDR5X memory. Yeah. This is no joke. And because of course that's not going to be enough, things get even crazier from there. As far as memory goes, this guy has a full 64 gigs of RAM. And on top of that, it has SSDs. 3 of them. In addition to the 2 terabytes of puny, mere mortal SSHD storage in this guy, you're also going to be getting those 3 PCIe SSDs together in RAID. So in total, that gives you 1.2 terabytes of full SSD storage in RAID, which combined can run it up to 8.7 gigabytes a second. For context, a normal SSD is going to give you around 600 megabytes a second. So yeah, this is fast. And yeah, it's probably so fast that you really won't be able to tell the difference. But it's cool. All of this adds up to what is very possibly the smoothest, nicest Windows experience that I've ever had. So of course, stuff like booting up is pretty much instant. Well, not instant, but I mean, it takes a few seconds. But things like opening up a program or just minor little things that you kind of get used to taking a half second or a full second on normal Windows PCs, even higher end ones with SSDs, are done almost instantly with this thing. It's kind of hard to get across on video, but using this thing for a couple days, it's kind of hard to go back to a normal PC. It is just that fast. Of course, all of this is in hardware that is not exactly thin nor light. This is easily one of the biggest gaming laptops you can get. However, it is really nicely built, which it should be, to be fair, because it does cost $5,000. Because this laptop is so obscenely powerful, ASUS took a page out of my playbook, and they include dual power supplies in the box. And my friends, you're definitely going to need dual power supplies because between the Core i9, which is overclocked, as well as the GTX 1080, which is also overclocked, this guy absolutely destroys battery. I mean, for context, this has been literally sitting here and idling for 15 minutes, and right now we've burned about 13% of the battery, doing nothing besides sitting on the Windows start screen. And if you're the kind of person who's put off by trying to carry a giant 17-inch laptop, which probably weighs like 10 pounds, as well as dual power supplies every day, then this is probably not the $5,000 laptop for you. However, for the rest of us who are ridiculously insane and want one of these, myself included, there's actually a lot of other cool stuff that's included with the laptop. Of course, you've got all the ports you could ever hope for, including Thunderbolt 3, HDMI, mini DisplayPort, Ethernet, USB, you name it, this has got it. This also applies to the basic stuff like the keyboard. It's got good travel, nice spacing, and of course it does have the full RGB treatment. But what's also impressive is the trackpad. Not only is it giant, but this is legitimately the best trackpad that I've ever used on Windows. It has the Windows Precision touchpad drivers, but importantly, it has that awesome sounding left and right click. It's really mechanical, and this legitimately feels like an expensive laptop, which of course it is, as I will remind you for the 4th time in this video. When you go below $1,000, typically you have to below $1,000 for mere mortals who don't have $5,000 to spend. These speakers are pretty solid here as well, although generally speaking it does get a little loud, so you'll probably want to hook up a headset. But not only do you have 2 speakers that are sort of on the bottom chassis, but you also have 2 front-firing speakers directly at you. That being said, when you're gaming, it gets loud, so you know, buy a headset. Remove this little rubber flap as well as a single screw underneath, and you'll have access to most of the expandability with the laptop. So you're going to find your 1, 2, 3 SSDs, as if that wasn't enough. You're also going to have your 2.5-inch SSHD bay, and on top of that, you're going to have access to 32 of your 64 gigs of RAM. Now, of course, with a computer that's going to be this powerful, you also have to have a screen to match. So while it's only a 1080p display, you are getting a full 17.3 inches, and it supports not only G-Sync, but also a 144 Hz refresh rate. And with a GTX 1080 to power it, it has no problem taking advantage of that full frame rate. So here on Fortnight at full epic settings, we're getting somewhere in the neighborhood of 130 to 140 frames per second, just right in the sweet spot of what this display can handle. But if for some reason you have some super demanding game, because you have G-Sync, it will kick in to sort of smooth things out if you do go down to, say, some mere mortal frame rate like 60 or 70. Ugh. Man, PUBG stands absolutely no chance against a laptop like this. So we're easily in the 100 frame per second range as we're running around here on those full epic settings. And of course, a big part of that is because we do have the GTX 1080 inside, but it's also being backed up by that Core i9. Considering that we'll easily hit 4.8 gigahertz, that does sort of bring up the general settings of pretty much any game you throw at it. But keep in mind that actually we have different modes. So right now, we're running on silent mode, and it's actually reasonably quiet. However, if we want the maximum performance, and if mere 109 frames per second is good enough, I can just switch it over to either balanced or overboost, and as you'll hear, it gets a lot louder, but we're also going to start to see the frame rates go even higher. Generally speaking, I actually like to use it on quiet mode. Yeah, you're giving up some performance, but in exchange, it's going to be a lot quieter. However, if you have a good pair of headphones, this actually is not a bad way of getting a little bit of extra performance. Although, you better have some pretty solid headphones. Even though it's a slightly older game, GTA 5 can still be fairly taxing when you crank everything up. And here, running on full ultra settings, we're getting somewhere in the neighborhood of around 60 frames per second. Now that actually still doesn't look too bad, especially because we do have the G-Sync panel. But it's crazy that this game, which started on Xbox 360, looks this nice a few years later, provided you have a lot of hardware to throw at it. Another game that can be quite demanding is Middle-earth: Shadow of War. Now here, running on full ultra settings at 1080, again we're actually staying somewhere in the 90 to 100 frame per second range. With that G-Sync panel, it looks super smooth. And keep in mind that this is still running on the quiet mode. There's definitely a little bit more performance there and some better thermals if you don't mind letting the fans crank to hyper speed. This thing is absolutely ridiculous. Between the massive size, the dual power supplies, the terrible battery life, and the eye-wateringly high price tag, it's just not a good idea for anyone to pick up. And yet, I kinda love it. ASUS went all out to make something awesome, and I've gotta give them props for that. Well, at least until they make me send the laptop back. You know who won't make me send the laptop back? NordVPN, the proud sponsor of today's video. So whether you're browsing on public Wi-Fi, traveling abroad, or you just don't want your ISP snooping on your data, you should absolutely have a VPN, and NordVPN is what I've been using for quite a while. So last year, Ken and I went to China for an event, and while we were there, we wanted to, use the internet, like Twitter and YouTube. And how we did that was using NordVPN. As of recording, NordVPN currently has over 4,000 different servers in 62 different countries around the world. So if you want, you can just use it to automatically connect, or if you want something specific, you can use that to get to a specific country to be able to do, well, your Twitter browsing in peace. NordVPN is going to work with nearly all of your devices, including Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android. And on top of that, you're also going to be getting solid encryption as well as really fast speeds almost regardless of where you are. I'm so glad that NordVPN reached out to sponsor this video because it is something I legitimately do use all the time. If you guys want to check it out for yourselves and help support the channel, head over to nordvpn.com/Austin and use the promo code Austin at checkout to get yourself 77% off. Anyway, huge shout out to NordVPN for sponsoring this video, and I will catch you in the next one.